You are not going to believe what just happened. I live in a neighborhood run by an HOA, Homeowners Association, a place where drama basically lives rent-free. And at the center of it all? Karen, our resident nightmare neighbor who thinks she's in charge of everyone and everything. She's the type who has an opinion on every little thing and loves to throw her weight around. If there's a rule to bend, Karen's the one enforcing it. But things escalated in a way that nobody saw coming. I have an emotional support animal, ESA, a small dog named Milo who helps me manage my anxiety. He's fully registered, with all the necessary paperwork to back him up. Karen didn't care about that, though. She started complaining to the HOA, saying that Milo wasn't allowed in the neighborhood. She harassed me repeatedly, even though I knew the law was on my side. One day, while walking Milo around the park, Karen approached us. Out of nowhere, she sprayed Milo in the face with some kind of cleaner. I was in shock but quickly began recording. The police arrived, watched the video, and arrested her on the spot for animal cruelty. Milo was okay, but Karen learned the hard way that messing with my ESA would come with consequences. For some background, I have an emotional support animal, ESA, a small, incredibly sweet dog named Milo. He's fully certified and legally protected, with all the necessary paperwork in place. I've kept everything in order, just in case I ever needed to prove it, which, thankfully, I've never had to do, at least, not until now. The HOA rules are crystal clear about respecting emotional support animals, and Milo is well within his rights to be in the community. But of course, none of that mattered to Karen. From day one, she made it her personal mission to harass me. Every chance she got, she would complain to the HOA about Milo, even though she knew nothing about him or his role in my life. She'd shout at me during walks, calling him all sorts of ridiculous names. She even tried to convince other neighbors that Milo was a danger to public safety, even though he's literally smaller than her designer purse. If it wasn't so frustrating, it would have been laughable. But Karen wasn't laughing. She was determined to make my life as difficult as possible, and it felt like there was no end to her relentless pursuit. No matter what I did, she always found something to complain about. Every time I saw her, it was like walking into a trap. It seemed like she was always watching, always waiting for an opportunity to cause trouble. Then, last Tuesday, everything came to a head. I took Milo on his usual walk around the community park. It was a typical morning. Milo was happily trotting along beside me, sniffing the grass and enjoying the fresh air, while I was just trying to get in a peaceful stroll. I was starting to forget about Karen and her petty complaints for once. We were minding our own business, just like we always did, when out of nowhere, I heard the unmistakable sound of angry footsteps approaching. Before I even had a chance to look up, there she was. Karen, storming toward us, face red with anger. She didn't waste any time. She was already shouting something about dirty animals ruining the neighborhood, her voice shrill and filled with pure vitriol. I froze for a moment, trying to figure out how I could de-escalate the situation. Milo, sensing the tension, pulled a little closer to me, looking up with wide, confused eyes. I didn't get a chance to respond before Karen pulled something out of her bag. At first, I thought it was just a bottle of water or something harmless, but then she raised it and aimed it directly at Milo's face. It was a spray bottle, and before I could even register what was happening, she sprayed a jet of liquid into Milo's eyes. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My heart dropped as I heard Milo cry out in pain and jump backward, his small body clearly startled and confused by the sudden assault. I immediately stepped forward, trying to shield Milo from further harm. But Karen wasn't done. She kept yelling, calling me irresponsible and accusing me of letting a dangerous animal run loose. She wasn't even making any sense at this point, but all I could focus on was making sure Milo was okay. I knelt down beside him, checking his eyes and trying to comfort him as best as I could. He was shaking, and I could tell he was terrified, but thankfully, he wasn't seriously hurt. My first instinct was to try to calm the situation down and get away from her. But then, something in me snapped. I couldn't let this go, not after what she'd done to my dog. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking, and started recording. It felt surreal. I knew I had to capture everything that was happening, but it didn't feel real. It was like some awful nightmare where Karen had crossed the line into something even more outrageous than usual. While I was filming, Karen kept ranting. She tried to claim that Milo was attacking her and that she was just defending herself. But there was no mistaking it, she had literally sprayed him in the face with a chemical cleaner. No matter how much she tried to twist the narrative, the video didn't lie. It was all right there in front of me. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I quickly got Milo on a leash and started walking toward the exit of the park, still recording as Karen shouted after me. I didn't even want to hear it. I had to get Milo to safety and make sure he wasn't in any distress. But then, just as we were about to leave the park, a neighbor who had witnessed the whole thing came running over to me. Apparently, they'd seen Karen approach us and had been watching the whole scene unfold from their porch. Without hesitation, they pulled out their phone and called the police. At that point, I couldn't believe how quickly things were escalating. Within minutes, I was standing there, still shaking, while Karen was still ranting about how I was in the wrong and how my dog was out of control. But the officers arrived soon after, and the whole situation shifted in an instant. I handed them my phone, showing them the video of Karen spraying Milo. The officers watched it, and within seconds, they turned to Karen and informed her that she was under arrest for animal cruelty and harassment. It was like the world had tilted on its axis. Karen's face twisted with rage, but there was nothing she could do. She was taken into custody right there in front of everyone. I remember feeling a mix of relief and disbelief as the officers cuffed her. This woman who had made my life so difficult, who had tormented me and my dog for so long, was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Milo, though shaken up, was okay. I immediately took him to the vet to make sure he wasn't injured, but the doctor confirmed he was fine, just a bit traumatized by the whole ordeal. I gave him some treats and cuddles, and we went home to rest. The police told me that Karen would be facing charges for animal cruelty, and I was informed that she would likely be banned from the park and other common areas in the neighborhood. The HOA also said they would be following up with additional fines and penalties. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It's been a few days since the incident, and things have calmed down in the neighborhood. Karen is nowhere to be seen, and I'm hopeful that this will be the end of her reign of terror. As for Milo, he's back to his usual, happy self, and I'm just glad to have him by my side, safe and sound. What happened with Karen was extreme, but it reminded me how important it is to stand up for the things we love and protect them when they can't protect themselves. And if someone crosses the line, especially when it involves harming animals, they need to face the consequences. I'm just relieved that Milo and I are finally free from her cruelty. Within minutes, one of our neighbors, who had witnessed the whole thing, called the police. I was still trying to calm Milo down, comforting him as best as I could while Karen raged on, her voice growing more shrill by the second. She kept repeating that I was a bad pet owner, that Milo was dangerous, and that I was the one causing trouble in the neighborhood. It was a blur of accusations and nonsense coming from her, but in my mind, I was just thinking about getting Milo to safety and making sure this woman didn't get away with what she'd done. The neighbor who had called the police stood by my side as we waited for the officers to arrive, trying to offer words of comfort and support. I was so shaken up, but at the same time, a small part of me felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't the only one who had seen what had happened. Someone else knew the truth. When the police arrived, I was ready. I immediately pulled out my phone and showed them the video of Karen spraying Milo in the face with the cleaner. The officers watched the footage closely, their faces serious as they took in what had happened. It was clear that Karen had crossed a line, and there was no way she could spin the situation in her favor. Karen, however, wasn't backing down. She was still yelling, still trying to paint herself as the victim in all of this. That dog attacked me. You have no idea what it's like living in this neighborhood. You should have him put down, she screamed, her face red with rage. She continued her tirade, not even acknowledging that her own actions were the cause of the entire situation. But the more she yelled, the clearer it became that her lies weren't going to fly. The officers turned to her and explained that they had already seen the video and that what she had done was clearly an act of animal cruelty. Without hesitation, they arrested her on the spot. I was in complete shock. I had never imagined that things would escalate this far, but in a strange way, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Watching Karen get handcuffed, still screaming and ranting about how this is my neighborhood, was pure karma at work. She had spent so much time trying to make my life miserable, and now, she was getting exactly what she deserved. As she was put into the back of the squad car, still muttering about how unfair everything was, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and disbelief. I had spent months dealing with her harassment, and now, finally, there were real consequences for her actions. The police officers gave me a few reassuring words before they left with her, and the neighbor who had called the police thanked me for standing up for myself and Milo. The HOA didn't waste any time either. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood, and soon, the association had imposed a hefty fine on Karen for her behavior. Not only that, but they also banned her from using the community park altogether, effectively cutting her off from one of the few places she seemed to think she had control over. It felt good knowing that she wouldn't be able to continue causing problems for anyone else. There was even talk that more serious action might be taken against her, including a potential lawsuit for the distress she caused. I was relieved to know that the situation was being taken seriously by those who had the power to do something about it. As for Milo, he's doing just fine now. He was a little shaken up at first, understandably, but after a trip to the vet, some cuddles, and a whole lot of treats, he was back to being his usual happy, tail-wagging self. He's a resilient little dog, and I couldn't be more grateful for how strong he is, even after such a traumatic experience. Every time I look at him, I'm reminded of how important it is to stand up for the ones we love and protect them, no matter what. The best part, though, is the change that has come over the neighborhood since Karen's meltdown. Ever since that day, things have been a lot quieter. People seem to have a bit more respect for each other now. The tension in the air that Karen had created has lifted, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can walk through the neighborhood without being on edge. There's a new sense of kindness in the air, and I like to think that Karen's actions were the catalyst for this shift. Neighbors who had once been too scared to speak up against her have started offering words of encouragement, and even those who didn't know me before have come over to check in on Milo. It's like the whole community has come together to make sure that something like what happened to us doesn't happen again. People are being more mindful of each other's space, and there's a greater sense of unity now that Karen is out of the picture. I still can't believe everything that went down. I never imagined that one woman's hatred for my dog would spiral into something so dramatic. But in the end, it turned out to be a reminder of how important it is to stand up for what's right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. I'm grateful that Milo and I are safe and that Karen's reign of terror has come to an end. And as for Karen, well, she'll have plenty of time to reflect on her actions, from behind bars, no less. Sometimes, it takes something as extreme as this to shake up a community and remind everyone that we all deserve respect, no matter our differences. For me, the outcome was bittersweet. I had to go through a lot to get here, but in the end, I'm stronger, and so is Milo. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all that matters.